Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to In the Bag, episode 56 on continuation. We just decided that that's going to be our thing. It's always episode 56.
Yeah, we're just staying on episode 56. The last episode was 56. The episode before that was 56. Welcome to episode 56, part 3.
Yeah. You want your In the Bag episode 56 t-shirts to come. It's going to be fantastic.
Yep, episode 56, gang, forever.
Forever.
So, Robbie, how's it going this week, man? I know up here the weather is great. It feels like disc golf season finally has arrived.
Absolutely. It's beautiful weather down here. We're like, and y'all feel it too, because Virginia, when I think of Virginia location, on the country, I don't think of Virginia as the South. But then when I think about the weather that y'all are, and the weather that I've experienced on 2 out of my 3 trips to Lynchburg, I also don't think of you as the South. But right now, you guys are getting the beautiful part of the South. And so we're in that okay, you kind of need to get out and get your round in either in the morning, or you need to get it in at starting at 3 or 4, because if you go out at 12 or 1, you're cooking.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm weird. And again, this is me coming from Ohio, and trust me, living in Ohio my whole life and coming to Virginia is the South. I will say that for more reasons than just the weather, in good ways.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I like the sweat. That's one of my favorite parts about disc golf, is going out and just get a good sweat on, throwing some disc around. So that's pretty fun.
I laugh because I'll go on a family vacation with my wife's family, and we'll go to the beach or something, and they're like, Robbie, you don't feel like you need to lay out or anything? And I'm like, oh yeah, no, because I play disc golf for my job. So I am almost always incredibly tanned because of that. So
always cooking. But
if you find yourself out there sweating through everything, one of the easiest solutions we have is our presenting sponsor at In the Bag, which is Flippy Disc Golf. So Flippy Disc Golf has a ton of new apparel out there. I'm wearing one of their old jerseys. If you're looking for a comfortable shirt to wear around the house, or even comfortable to wear on the course, this is their cottony jersey, and it's still, once again, very breathable. It's not like it's going to stick to your skin or anything while you're out there on the course, but they're also introducing their Soul Pro material, which is more of a dry fit feel, but also has UV protection inside of it. So you can be out there on the course without having to worry about those harmful UV rays getting in, and you keep those bogeys off of you because you're going to be looking good while you're out there. Have a multitude of options available on the Flippy website. You definitely want to check out. They've just dropped their West Coast collection for the Bogey Bro Tour. I'm definitely going to have to grab that bear camo pattern. Looks sick.
It in person looks great, by the way.
Yeah. So definitely check that out. We got the Robbie C collection that is coming soon. I should have the mock-ups, and I don't know what they're called, but the initial ones.
Mock-ups.
Yeah. I should have the mock-ups in my hand to give the stamp of approval. I'm sure you're going to love it. I'm going to let you guys know there are 5 different patterns that are a part of the Robbie C lineup, and 2 of them involve my favorite food, pizza. So
it is they're great. The one that we've all already seen, the pig one, is fantastic. So, I'm lucky enough behind the scenes. I got to see him. I know you all are going to love him. Yeah. Thanks, Flippy. Thanks, Aaron, for supporting In the Bag, for supporting this foundation and the Bogey Bro Tour out west. The guys are having a blast, and we couldn't do it without Flippy. So make sure you check out Flippy, pick up some apparel. Look in the description, save some money. There's a promo code down there. Make sure you use that at checkout and pick up some In the Bag gear, from some Robbie C gear, some foundation gear. It's all there. So make sure you check it out.
Absolutely. Well, we want to go ahead and bring in our guest, Mr. Danny, to get us started, because this is the only podcast being recorded in Foundation Studios for over these 2 weeks. We got this one and our podcast again next week. So it's a fantastic time, guys.
And I'm not going to lie. The studio's quiet. I thought I was going to love it, but I feel like one of those empty nesters where the house is quiet and you just feel lonely and sad. So
I could see that. I could see the, or I'm shutting down the hospital. I'm the last person in or whatever, and the halls are empty, and that's where all the ghosts are.
And there could be ghosts in here. Yeah. I look over, I don't see Robbie. I don't see your face being edited over in Silas's station. There's nothing being thrown at back and forth between Hunter and Trevor. Connor's not like blowing me kisses. It's a sad day. But
That's fair.
hey,
Hey, we
you know
miss
how we're not lonely? Let's bring in Danny. Let's get the whole team together. Let's get some camaraderie and let's talk about some discs.
Come on. Welcome to the podcast. We've got Mr. Danny Graves in the house. Danny, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Dude, honored
Awesome.
to have you. I got to ask a question based on email signatures and things like that before we dive in. Do you have a tennis like instructing background?
Oh yeah. So I played college tennis, and now I coach for a living. I actually run a tennis facility in Iowa in the Midwest, and I string tennis rackets as well. My goal is to, eventually get on tour and string for the big leagues. So hopefully someday that happens.
Awesome.
That's
okay.
awesome. That's very cool.
I gonna be honest. I knew nothing really about my interactions with tennis. I dated a girl in college who wanted us to be a tennis couple. She was super competitive and she was really athletic, but I also have that competition and athletic background. And so it just didn't go well when we played each other in singles all the time. So she would get really mad. So tennis couple didn't work out. That couple didn't work out either. But and then my second is a lot of Mario tennis back and forth. And so until Josh and Mikey from Overthrow came into my life, I was always like, yeah, tennis is just like a country club thing, all that. And they have given me a whole new appreciation for tennis. So you're in good company. Also, tennis instructors, I feel like there's a lot of disc golf mechanics that connect with tennis very well.
Yes, there are, especially the forehand.
Yes. Yeah. The only thing that I've noticed with tennis instructors is that tennis, your feet traditionally land in an open stance. And in disc golf, we like to have more of a closed stance on the backhand, of course. So
Yeah. I'd say that's pretty accurate.
yeah. So trust me, I've spent so much time, Danny, just talking with Josh about like how this goes down. So I love that. So that also is going to make sense for a lot of your numbers. On why kind of natural transitions, but we want them to get to know you as a player, not just a tennis guy, Danny. So a couple of foundational questions we ask first is how long have you been playing disc golf?
I played casually throughout college, like once every few months. I was an all forehand guy. My backhand went like 50 feet to the left. It was not good. And then once COVID hit, just like a lot of people, a buddy of mine, he was one of my instructors here at the club. He's like, hey, let's go disc golf. I was like, sure. And we got hooked, just like, the rest of the population has said.
Awesome. So coming up on your 3-year anniversary.
Yeah, probably 3 years for like, being consistent with it.
Okay. That's awesome. It still continues to blow my mind when I hear people like COVID golfers that y'all have been playing for 3 years. Like it's been that long. So that is,
I'm approaching it myself. So
yeah, that's awesome, y'all. All right. So that's your time. If we were to put you open field, put a basket X amount of distance away, how far do you think you could consistently reach that basket with accuracy on a backhand and a forehand?
Oh, I'd say 350 for a backhand and 300 for a forehand.
Okay. Those are phenomenal numbers. I think people need to understand if you can throw a 300-foot accurate forehand, you have a great forehand. If you can throw a 400-foot accurate forehand, you have an elite top-level forehand.
Yeah.
So that is 300 is nothing to shake your head at. That is awesome. I know plenty of our listeners who wish they could throw either of their shots 300, much less at least both of them. Okay, so we put you on the putting green, and we're like, all right, Danny, we got 10 putters at 15 feet, 10 putters at 25, and 10 putters at 40 feet. How many are you making at each station?
I'd say 9 out of 10 from 15.
Okay.
I feel like I'm pretty confident from that area. I'd say from 25, probably 6 out of 10.
Okay.
And then 40, probably 3 out of 10.
Okay. That is not bad numbers. Very much sounds like a very well-rounded game. Have you, I'll ask a bonus question. Do you play any like sanctioned events or anything?
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome. Would you mind sharing your rating?
952 right now.
Okay. Awesome. That makes a load of sense with those abilities. So, final question being, what would you say is the biggest strength of your game?
Oh, I'd probably say just overall consistency. I'd say my misses aren't big. Like, I feel like I'm very accurate and like I can hit lines pretty consistently.
Okay. Awesome. That's something to have. And especially, I think people, if they're stuck around that 900 rating mark, they think to themselves, I just need more distance. I need more, like, I got to be able to throw 400. If I can throw 400, I think really until you're trying to push 1,000, throwing 400 doesn't really like come into play as much. But just being able to throw accurately within your 300, within your 250 is huge. So,
Oh yeah,
Danny, I'm loving to hear it, man. From a coach to a coach, we're vibing. And speaking of vibing, we're gonna start with your putters because a lot of people are gonna think that, wow, Danny got chosen specifically because of the putters right here. And I'm not saying that's untrue, but it is not the full truth. So very excited for this, Danny. You also rock an all Innova bag.
I do. Yes.
So why Innova?
Well, I've been given a lot of crap for that over the last few years, just from, buddies that I play with. And I think it actually comes from like my tennis background. In tennis, you want to have more than one racket in case your strings break in a match. And you want to keep the string consistent. You want to keep the tension consistent. And that kind of transferred over to disc golf. It's like, why would I want to throw a bunch of different plastics and molds and whatnot and just kind of have a bunch of variables that, I don't necessarily understand. So it's like, and I mean, most people start with Innova because you go to a Walmart or a Shields or a Dick's Sporting Goods or whatever it is, and that's primarily what they have in stock. Mm-hmm. So, and that was the case for me. And I started with Innova and specifically Star Plastic, and I loved the feel of that. And I just stuck with it because I wanted to, stay consistent.
Okay, that's a phenomenal answer. And Brad, it's like whenever I see the one disc bag, I always go straight to Brad and think of the Discraft only days. And like Brad, if you had to go back to brand loyalty and be like, all right, I'm going one manufacturer, who are you taking at this point?
Mint. I know. That's it. And here's the thing: they don't have like a super complete lineup. I don't feel like, but I think I can lean on, and that probably just comes back to like I really probably only need like 8 discs, really, if I'm being honest, and a couple putters. But I feel like I could do anything I needed to do, at least around here, being an amateur player that plays a lot with Mint's lineup.
Yeah.
So.
Well, because I guess you could replace, like, you could go. The uplink could become a lobster. The Jackalopes still staying.
Jackalopes, Grackle, Diamondback. Yeah. I mean, I've got the Bobcat, which I love. I mean, we got it covered. I mean, the Prophet is that like a Sublime Prophet can be my envy. So we got it covered if I had to. So, but hey, I will say this though, and I said this before we got on, Danny. Robbie told me you had an all Innova bag, and I said, well, at least with like Innova, and this is no like knock to Discraft, but Discraft has a complete lineup, but there's not a lot of like variables in between, or not of like subtle changes in discs in between. They just have a pretty well-rounded lineup. Innova has a lot of variables, so like if you don't like, I mean, just think of like Leopard 3, T-Bird 3. I mean, like just think of just those discs alone. You know, there's a lot of choices you still have in one brand. So I think if you were doing all one brand, I think Innova makes maybe the most sense. And also like you said, the availability also makes a lot of sense. So to give you credit and any all Innova people credit, I understand why. I would not choose to do that now being where I am, but I get it. It makes sense.
Yeah.
So
who knows?
Yeah. And it's a choice that I'm going to say I avoid the one disc bag, but if I were to fall into it, like I literally was talking to someone, it may have even been the last In the Bag podcast we did about a Valkyrie, and I have like a Valkyrie sitting right next to me that, man, that thing is constantly fighting to get back in my bag. And I just have to be like, sorry, buddy, you got to stay on the wall because I got another disc that does what you do. It keeps me from being all Innova. So fighting that temptation, which I know the comments are going to be like, Robbie, if the disc is good, why don't you keep it in the bag? Because the other disc is also good. Okay. There's
a lot of discs that are good, and we only have a bag that is so big.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I don't want Atlas to create the Atlas haul where it's just a giant like trolley that I pull behind me.
It's like it actually carries 4 Pioneers stacked on top of each other.
Okay.
So you can carry 100 discs if you really want to.
Yeah, because that's what you need. And in order to make things easier, you need more discs.
Right.
So speaking of someone who's made it a little easier on themselves, Danny, you putt with Fireflies, it looks like. And then, so nothing to ask there. It is, or I guess what plastic do you putt with them in?
The Nexus.
Okay. Just like the OG, like purple ones, usually?
Yep.
Awesome.
I can show you if you want.
Yeah. They also glow, which is great.
This is the bad boy right here.
Yeah.
Nice.
She's a little worn.
Whenever I play glow golf, I always end up pulling my Fireflies out because it is one of the only normal feeling glow putters I have. So love that. Moving on to, we'll start with the oddball and then we'll come back. You have a Mirage in your bag, which is a disc that I would be willing to bet over 50% of our listeners, even I'd jump it up to 60% of listeners, have never even heard of a Mirage, much less held one. I have a friend who had a Mirage for a long time, so I'm intimately familiar with it because he threw that disc all over my face. Describe what the Mirage does for you.
Yeah, this is the Mirage. I dyed this one myself. I don't know if it's a very good dye, but so yeah, it's 3-4 -3-0. And I actually only really use it for like huge, like flip up turnover shots or rollers. Like it is a spectacular, like 300-foot roller type disc.
Like a backhand putter roller.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Or even like patent pending, out of bush roller.
Yeah.
Like this thing has gotten me out of trouble.
That's awesome. I would say the putter roller, the backhand putter roller is a shot that if I'm going to take 60% of people don't even know what a Mirage is, I'm going to jump up to 90% of people do not throw backhand putter rollers. So,
well, it's very thin. Like it's not like your typical looking putter. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean it's a weird disc.
Hey, but unique. Do you have any backups to your Mirage, or is it like a one of a kind at this point?
Oh no, I have like 7.
Okay.
So, yeah.
This man knew I got to hunt these things down.
I love them. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, jumping to the other, you only have 2 molds for throwing putters in your bag. You've got a Mirage, and then you jump all the way over to the precious, the best disc, Pig is Love, Pig is Life. You've got 3 pigs in your bag.
I do, yeah.
I can identify immediately as a fellow pig farmer. What do your 3 pigs do?
So I have 2 Tour Series, Ricky Wysocki. Probably can't see him very well, but these are like, really, really beat up. I can't tell. I don't know if you can tell how warped they are, but puddle tops. Yeah. So these both, like if you just hit it hard, I mean, they are flipping up and turning a little bit and coming back. Like they are just like nice. They'll never turn over. It's just a flight or a straight flight if you hit it hard enough. And then even forehands too. Like I can throw them probably 200 and just a nice little flip up and just straight. So I always, if I have a disc I really like, I always have 2 of them in case like in a tournament I lose one of them, I have a backup. So that's why I have 2 of those.
Okay. So the two 2020s, they fly very similar at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, they do. Yep. I've had them both for basically the same amount of time, and I'll throw them both in practice and stuff, and they kind of have similar wear.
Okay.
So yeah. And then I have probably one of my favorite like backhand approach to disc. This is a pretty sweet one. The Star Pig.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, it's pretty cool. But this thing is a lot more overstable than the other two pigs. So it'll be if like there's a tree or something's in the way, I can just, spike it and it'll come back without a problem.
I'd like to go on the record that I would throw that pig. That pig is gorgeous.
It is. It's very nice.
Well, as a pig farmer, I've got two questions. One, you're throwing a Star Pig. Do you have backups to your Star Pig?
No, they're so hard. They're so hard to find.
I cannot tell you how much I commend you for throwing your Star Pig. My Star Pig is literally on my house fire shelf, is what I call it. Like there's like a whole stack of discs that are in case of emergency. Here we go. I have a black Blizzard champion pig. I have a Star Pig, and then I have I just have this like little stack of discs. But my Star Pig, I literally told myself I really want to throw it because I want the premium one, but I'm afraid if I do, I will love it, and every R Pro will fall short after this. So I just watching the 2020s, I can see that if I see a 2020 pig for less than $50, I don't even blink. I just buy it. And then if I ever see a Star Pig, I'm not going to say the number that I see for that, that if I see them, because my wife is still within earshot. So it is.
I got very lucky with this one. I mean, it's still a lot for a disc, but I think it was like 60 or 65. But
that is a steal.
It's gotten me a lot of birdies. So
that's awesome. Well, I completely understand there. I think the only as a fellow pig farmer to a pig farmer, the only thing that I would recommend as an alternative is taking an R Pro, like a regular R Pro. And if you use it for a little bit of time, it beats into this beautiful neutral between your what your Star Pig's doing and what your 2020 is going to do, which would open up more options. But I'm going to be curious. That shot you may also have covered with the Rat that we'll talk about in mid ranges. So I could see that as someone who throws the three pigs, those are mine, my three slots. I've got Precious Child, which is my 2020, which, like you said, you can throw it on this awesome turnover shot and you never have to worry about it fading out. It never burning out. So absolutely love that. I can feel it deep within my soul, Danny. So I'm glad that we basically have the same pig setup. Moving on to Rats, because you have 6 mids in your bag as well, and keeping the sort of vibe going with that. 6 mids in the bag. Start with the Rats. What do they do? And how do they differ from the pigs?
Yeah, so I would just say they just go farther. Rats are not as overstable as people think they are. I think when Innova made them, they were trying to make it similar to a zone. But if you just beat them in just a little bit, they're actually really good straight flyers. And yeah, I can probably throw it about 300, 315 consistently, and it's just smooth. So I would just say the difference is just farther.
Okay. Yeah, has a little bit of extra glide that the
yes, the pig doesn't have.
And so this will help me on a lot of the questions that we'll ask in the future, because like you said, if you like a disc, you have 2 of them. So for most of the discs that you have doubled up through the rest of your bag, do they fly pretty similar? You just have them in there as backups?
Yeah. So whenever I go practice, I always throw 2 shots. So I mean, if I hit a tree with the first one, I'm not trying to hit that same tree. I'm trying to correct it. But I always throw 2 shots just for the practice and just to kind of try to get that consistent wear.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. So that will help as we move forward. Because that way I'm not all right, so that's what one rat does. So what does the other rat do? It does the same thing. Hopefully. So that's fantastic to know. But I think where that we might see the first variance between those two, possibly, maybe not, is your Rock 3s. You've got one in DX Glow and you've got one in Star Plastic.
Yes.
So do those have a variance?
Those do have a variance, yes. So the DX Glow, I love that. I've had that disc probably almost as long as my oldest discs, and like I can throw it at like a just like a probably 30-degree angle, and it just flips up and it just flies straight. Like it is a beautiful disc. And like if I throw it like maybe a little bit of a Hyzer, flip up and just have like a nice turn. So like in like the woods, I use it all the time in the woods.
Okay.
And then the Rock 3, that's just something I'll hit hard and I can get it to fly straight, but it'll dump a lot harder than the DX Glow.
Okay. So if rat is longer pig, the Rock is
Longer
easier.
rat.
Yeah, easier, longer rat kind of a deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So I guess we'll ask about the croc first, and then there's one side of like a challenge to this where I'm like, okay, I'm curious. Why not blank? But what does your croc do?
So Croc is his utility disc. It's like a 0.5, so like crazy overstable, and it's honestly it's kind of like the Mirage. A lot of people don't know of the Croc, but when they see me throw it, everybody's like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "Here, hold it," and they're like, "Where did you get this?" And I'm just like, "Well, they don't come out very much, but so I throw them." Like in a headwind, and they like never turn over. Like they don't even really flip up like much either. You can just throw it straight or flat in a headwind, and it just stays flat. Like it is crazy. So yeah, it's just a pretty big utility disc.
Yeah, and I was trying to remember because when I was on Team Innova, I was trying to find my Justice replacement. And so I tried the Cayman for a little bit. I tried the Gator for a little bit, and I was like, but there was one disc I found, and I was like, I remember it feeling like a rock in my hands, like a flatter rock. And looking at the wing, that's how I would describe the Croc. It's like
that makes sense.
You took the round flatness of a Gator and then shoved it on top of a rock.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, that was a great description. I was trying to think about that too.
Yeah,
it's funny. I've not thrown the Rat or the Croc, or actually, I threw the Mirage. By the way, that's one of those weird discs I pulled out of the used section. But the Croc, I picked up the Croc and I was like, there is no way that I could throw this disc. There is no way. It felt so overstable. Like it's one of those that like Hyzer's in your hand before it comes out of your hand. So that's good though. I mean. That's maybe a disc, and that's kind of why I keep my Bobcat in my bag as a mid-range. Like, I don't throw the Bobcat super often, but on that moment, you're doubting, like, there's some wind, you're throwing downhill, you're like, this cannot turn over. Like, that's the disc I lean on to. So I think it makes sense. That's maybe, and Jason and I have talked about that, by the way, Robbie. It's just like, that's a disc that I think maybe even a lot of beginners shy away from in their bag that has a lot of utility, and you really find yourself, if you have it in there, you're like, oh, I can lean on that. But if you don't, you feel like you're missing it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And it's one of those, the only reason that I like shy people away from, okay, you need to have, like, you got to have that in your bag early, is because it's a really good utility shot to have. But if you get it too early, I think you lean on it too much too fast. Whereas there are those clutch, unique moments of like, oh, this is absolutely the perfect shot for this disc. Like we have a hold here it's like 190 feet downhill, but there's a tree in the dead center of it. So I pull my Justice out and throw it on like so much Hyzer or so much Anheuser, and I just chop it a little bit, and it's so overstable that it's going to fight out down that hill the entire way, no matter how much Annie you put it on. And the Croc sounds like it's a very similar flying disc of like, you just know it's gonna fade eventually.
Yeah.
So my only My only question mark, and you can let me know how you cover this, or maybe it's just a shot that you don't really feel like you need that often, is like when we look at your chart, I would say that your Rock 3, like the Glow DX Rock 3, is on the overstable side of the chart. And that makes sense because the numbers, according to our Rock 3, would put it over there. It's probably a lot more in the middle, but I don't know, even hearing you describe it, I don't know that I would put it all the way to like understable.
Yeah, I when it's new, I'd say
Okay.
it's definitely not. But when you get it, if you can beat it in enough, and they beat in pretty quickly, I would say like if you throw it flat and hard, it's burning.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it does fill that understable slot for you. It's
Yeah.
would you put it more on like in line with your Leopard 3s, like a shorter Leopard 3?
Yeah. I'd say that's a pretty good comparison.
Awesome. Okay.
That was my question too. I wondered what his like understable choice was for the mid-range category. So that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think that honestly, once again, I'm catching so many strays from the end of a fanboys over here. But guys, you got to back off me because we're talking about Mirages, Crocs, Rats, like TL3s. It's like, guys,
Deep cuts, man. Deep
come
cuts.
on. Yeah, this is Innova's Deep Cuts 101. Only thing that you don't have in here is a Monster instead of your Maxes.
I almost bought a couple a while ago, but
yeah. I think it's super fascinating. And I think Innova, like the Star Stingray, amazing for that understable, super easy flip up. The Panther, great disc. They don't make the Panther as often anymore. But I think, and the Wombat 3, like, can be that disc. I'm glad that they're actually producing the Wombat 3s now. Like 2 years ago, you couldn't find Wombat 3s anywhere. So I think that really understable slot, or that naturally understable slot, is something Innova has shied away from in their current production. So it makes sense to me to take a Rock and beat it up, because that's another thing that people used to have to do with Innova in the past. You go back to 2015, 2013, it was you were putting a DX Rock in your bag and beating it up to get it to do that. So just fascinating. And I love that. And I love, it sounds like you said brand new. Do you have other DX Glow Rock 3s ready to go in case something happens?
yeah, I have a blue one as well. I have a pink one and then a blue one, and then I have a couple backups as well.
Okay,
So.
Awesome. So he's cooking. I love it, Danny. All right, moving on to fairways, and this was something that you said. Once we go from like fairways, this is where your bag, I think, like I can see. We always ask our guests off air, what's an area of your bag that you're struggling with or you feel least confident in, and hearing some of your thoughts, Danny, on how you feel about your fairways and then what you think you're missing in your bag. That makes so much sense looking at the grand scape of your bag. So I'm going to be very curious. I think I'm going to be so bold as to say I think we nailed it in terms of what we're going for. Because you said that your fairway drivers, you like your T-Bird, but everything else is like questionable. So we're going to start with a disc that I notoriously hate. And like, I'm going to get it out of the way. If we started in the bag with a disc that I love, the Leopard 3, I'm so sorry once again, Innova Strays. What do you like about the Leopard 3? Why is it there?
I think.
There's the first problem.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So if I'm being honest, I was playing a doubles tournament in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. It was at Wildcat. I don't know if you've heard of that course, but it's like a.
I've barely heard of Iowa, but continue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have to remind people that Iowa's in the Midwest because they don't know where it's at. But it's like a 550-foot hole, like just huge dogleg right, and it's kind of like slightly downhill. And I parked it with my Leopard 3, and I think it's just that like, don't worry, I don't throw 550 feet. It was just it is slightly downhill. But like I was just like, man, if I can do that every time, I need to keep this sucker. I can't do that every time. So I only really throw it in like a tailwind for like some distance, because otherwise I don't throw it much. So yeah.
Curious. Okay. Well,
Because
What do you desire like out of that spot in your bag? Like, let's just say not in a tailwind. You're like, hey, my understable fairway. Like, what kind of shot are you looking? If you're like, hey, I want to get multiple shots out of my Leopard 3 section or spot in my bag, like, what are you looking for that disc to do? If you could make your own disc to go in that slot, what do you want it to do?
I want I think other people have this issue. I want a fairway driver that feels good in the hand and will, can just flip up and fly straight and just have a little bit of a dump. Because I don't have that in my fairways. Like my fairways I'm very unconfident in that area. So, but yeah, something that just flies straight and I don't have to throw it hard. I can just throw smooth.
And do you want it to turn naturally, or do you want to just be able to turn it if you need to?
I'd probably say turn it if I need to.
okay. Because I'm gonna pull. You had when you listed them, you have your 9 speeds listed as fairway or as drivers. I'm gonna pull the 9 speeds into this one of the 9 speeds into this conversation. I'm gonna pull the Roadrunner in here. Mm-hmm. What does the Roadie do for you that, like, in comparison to the Leopard?
So the Roadrunner is like my big roller disc, and I would say like kind of like my Mirage. It would be like my big distance, like, hit it hard, flip it up and let it turn and just kind of, drift. Because even the Roadrunner, I mean, if I throw it even close to flat, it's burning. Like it's turning over.
And I would believe that wholeheartedly. Okay. So, interesting. So looking at that, like almost unusable for like easy flip up flat, like Hyzer flips and all that. Leopard 3 is not doing it for you. I could see a world that when you talk about that, like feels good in the hand, easy straight, a little bit of dump. I'm guessing that's where you want the TL3 to be, but it's just not.
Yeah, that's a disc I could just take out of my bag, probably. It really is.
Do you find it doesn't have a ton of glide? Like, does it just not want to go very far for you?
Yeah.
Here's a thought. So as we're talking in this category, Robbie, what do you think about this? What about a max weight champion it?
So I think the it could absolutely. Man, I wish they like named it something different because it makes it so cheesy when you talk about it. But I think that the it will fall perfectly between, like, I think it's what your Leopard wants to be for the repeated like usability. I also think that with the it, they have done way better at getting it to fly true to numbers. Leopard 3s are all over the place. Like I threw a Leopard 3. The reason I hate a Leopard 3 is because the first one I ever got flew like an eagle. And like, it wasn't just because I was bad at the time. Like I had other people who were actually good throw it, and they also thought it was like, they were like, check the bottom, make sure like it's not embossed to say eagle. So like the Leopard 3 it's one of their oldest molds. The Leopard's one of their oldest molds. Leopard 3 is not as old, but like it's a mold they've run a lot. So the consistency control on it is pretty terrible, and that's fine. Much more dialed in. When I'm looking at the TL3, I'm actually going to Haley King for it, who uses the Hawkeye in that slot.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so I think the Hawkeye, because Haley King, when she jumped in, fell into the world right of like the modern 2015 Paul's throwing T-birds, and they're super straight for him. But they're not. Like the T-bird is overstable. Not crazy overstable, but it's going to finish every single time. And is that what your T-bird is doing for you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm probably the most confident in that disc for my fairways. I can just throw it flat, and yeah, it's like hard too, and it might turn a little bit, probably just because of the accidental anhyzer, but and yeah, it'll still dump.
Yeah. And so the Hawkeyes are predominantly released right now in Halo plastic, but I'm pretty I think I might be
get them in
insane.
Champ.
But I was going to say, I think they make them in other plastics. Yeah. Like I can see
G-Star,
Star, I can see
Hawkeye.
Champ. Yeah. So
I just bought some G-Stars yesterday.
So they're around foundationdisc.com, coming soon to a website near you. But like, that's where I would check out the Hawkeye, because I bet with some plastic variability, you might even be able to avoid an it and get like a G-Star, like a lightweight G-Star Hawkeye, and it could be your turnover instead of the it, since you said you want that like forced over opportunity. So just looking at your deep cuts bag, I can tell like the newer molds that have come out, like the J and the Hawkeye and the it, for good reason. A lot of people are afraid to like dive into them, especially our older Innova fans. I think they've done a really good job with those molds. Like, I've not been so excited as to throw them as I have in a while. It is nasty. Like, it's so good.
I've thought about multiple times getting the it. I'll like just go to like a store and pick it up and just be like, man, should I?
Yeah. So I would look at those, especially if you're unhappy in the fairway slots. Like,
try the J too. I was going to talk about the J earlier, Robbie, when we were talking about that Rock 3. Like, I think you just go. I think you try out a Hawkeye, an it, and a J, and just see what like if there's overlap, or if you're like, hey, this is really what I wanted to, but instead of beating in this Rock 3 to perfection, I can just pull the J off the shelf, and it just is that for me, which I think is always a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely some options there.
3 bonus recommendations. We're not even to the regular.
Yeah,
one
we're
yet.
not even to the real one yet. So you can tell, like, it's funny. I know Innova more than I know any other manufacturer. So I as soon as I saw Innova only bag, I was like, buckle up, people. It's going to be a long episode because there's just so like. I can relate to the pains of trying to feel the fairway drivers out, trying to feel the mid ranges out, because when I was signed by, like when I was with them, it was like, okay, I had to go through this journey. So can feel all of your trial and error deep within my soul. Heading over to Overstable, I'm going to be very, very curious because these feel so similar, but I'm wondering if we have a pig and a rat situation. Firebird and Max, what's going on with those?
So the Nate Sexton Firebirds, I think they're 21s. They're not crazy overstable. So, and I love them for forehands. Like they're my, just throw a slight Hyzer and they actually do flip up a little bit and just fly straight. The Max, the Max does not fly straight. I mean that. So the Max is basically like my fairway driver or distance driver croc.
Okay.
To say, yeah. So it's like another utility disc. If I need to, shape a fairway, with a forehand and flex it, I mean, I go to the Max.
Okay.
Or like a big spike. But yeah, I would say there's a pretty big difference between those two.
And I think it's worth noting too, and I just, for whatever reason, I've thought this subconsciously the whole time, but you are in Iowa, there's a lot of wind, so that's why you're probably leaning into the more overstable of everything for those of you who are seeing the chart right now. That's why, you might be thinking, again, on the surface, hey, you throw like 300 to 350, depending on forehand, backhand. Why do you have all this overstability in your bag? We're going to presume you have pretty decent form, being a coach and a form coach of a different variety. But I had to just like, oh, yeah, he's in wind. Wait, why are you throwing that? Oh, you got a lot of wind to deal with. Because, again, here I'm not thinking about wind like a ton, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the wind is crazy here. Like, I mean, it's, especially in the spring, 30 to 40 mile per hour. Like it's not uncommon on a regular basis. So yeah, it's frustrating because when it stops being windy, you're like polling everything because like, you know, when it's really windy and you're throwing into the headwind, like you're kind of throwing it to the right a little bit just to make on a hyzer, just to make sure it doesn't turn over. But like it does mess with your form when it's that windy consistently, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to throw that out there. Like Croc and the Max makes sense for your game and your bag, whereas most people it will not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think about like, because Callaway and Gannon Burr are both Iowa guys, I think.
Gannon Burr is Des Moines area.
Yeah. So makes sense as well for like, oh yeah, like that's why. So many. It's funny regionally, like where people struggle. Like you see Colorado people always throw really far, and it's because of elevation. Like
Yeah.
they're as soon as they get down to sea level, they're like, oh, everything flips up now, easy. I hate you guys. Anyways, love you, Jesse. So the Max, do you have the Proctor Maxes or
No,
do you have
just
old
like
Maxes?
I'll pull it out for you. Just like a basic Star Max.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Because when Proctor, before he left, his last signature disc with them was, I think, Metal Flake Maxes.
Metal Flake, yeah.
And notoriously not as overstable as like a traditional Max.
Yeah. Yeah, like this one it's beefy.
Yeah. I've got a Max and a Monster chilling downstairs. And whenever like they were in my bag when I was with Innova, until I found the 2021 Calvin Destroyers, and they were super beefy. Problem is they were a little domey, and the Maxes and the Monsters were like also usually like table flat.
Yeah.
So once again, can relate and connect, and I love that you have your Maxes, and you can still find Maxes at an affordable price. Monsters, not so much. Maxes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the Monster. For those of you who had never heard of any of the thing we're talking about, we're not talking about Space Jam. We're talking like the Max. If the Max is an 05, I'm pretty sure the Monster is like an 04, and the Monster I think is also a 10-speed, as opposed to the Max is an 11. It's like the little brother to the Max. But for most people, if you're not playing in 34 mile an hour winds, the Monster is enough.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on to your Destroyer, which this takes us to like the area that you wanted help with was you had a beat-in Destroyer that you lost. So you need a straight distance driver that you're looking for. And once again, when we see the Roadie off to the right, we've got the Leopard. The TL3 is not as straight as he wants it to be. The T-Bird's falling, or the TL3, not the disc he's looking for necessarily. T-Bird's falling off. Firebird, even the Nate Sexton ones, not a straight disc. Max certainly not straight. So I can see this chasm form, the Grand Canyon diving down your distance driver slot. So what does the current Destroyer that you have in your bag, or do you have two in the bag now again? What's the Destroyer setup being?
So I'll just pull them out just so I can get them. So I have three. This is like my very overstable Destroyer.
Great,
these are actually pretty inconsistent from like color to color. Like this one is way more beefy than this one.
Yeah.
Like this. So this is the one I lost. This is a new one, but like this was the one I lost in water, and like not nearly as overstable as the other one. But I'm trying to beat this one in to get it to the one I lost. But and then I have just like a light basic stock Destroyer that I'll throw on like a tailwind.
Okay.
So yeah.
Awesome. Well, what Brad, you said you might have had some questions before we dive in about the one he lost. Like, go ahead and fire away.
Yeah, no, just what's your typical flight like on the one you lost? Why do you love it? Why is it like painful that you lost it?
I mean, I could throw that disc like, I mean, easily 400 plus and just like flip up even a little turn, like a controlled turn, and like it would just like, I mean, it would just go like just pretty much straight, and it was a smooth disc. Not much of a big, not big of that big of a dump either. Like it was just nice.
Would you say it's atypical for like what you found for destroyers, or have you been able to replicate that with others?
It's probably atypical. I mean, we'll see if I can get this one to that, but it's not normal. I got lucky.
Yeah, and listen, I really love and respect, and there's like some sort of like kind of art to beating in a disc to perfection, finding the right color, the right plastic, and then throwing it into some trees and like really beating it up to like this beautiful area. You know, I have 2 discs in my bag. Like I have this Envy Robbie saw, like does not fly like an Envy, but it's beautiful. It's perfectly beaten. It flies more like a proxy, or even like a little beat up proxy. But I love it because I love Envies, right? And it feels good. And I think, you know, I have a vulture that does not fly like a vulture. So I think the problem with those discs are that Envy is going to take me a lot of effort to replicate. That vulture is going to take me a lot of effort and heartache to replicate. So it stinks when you throw one in the water. You're like, oh, well, I hope this one's like that. So I always personally lean toward like, okay, can I find like a disc off the shelf that kind of flies like that already, so that when I do when I throw it in the water, I'm able to just go grab it. It's not a lot of heartache. Yeah, it stinks because you kind of get a little attached to them, but hey, that's okay. There's another one I can just grab. So that's just what my question was. You know, like what do you love about it? What is the flight doing? Because I actually threw 3 discs today, and there's a couple of variables that I just need to like consider. One is like, I'm guessing you probably throw like a little farther consistently than me. If you can hit that destroyer to 400, I'm not quite getting to 400 on something like a destroyer. Number 2, you're going to be in wind more often than I am. So I got to take that into consideration. And then also I wanted to try to give you a similar flight to that destroyer that you love, but something stock that you can just go grab somewhere. So I just wanted that. And that's kind of what, I mean, I didn't know all this coming into it, but I just had a feeling when Robbie's like, hey, he has a beat-in destroyer that he loves. Here's how far he throws. And he's like, here's some options for you. I was like, I need to throw at least 3 of these to really see where we're at. So that's all I had, Robbie. I just wanted to make sure I understood this destroyer that we're talking about.
Absolutely. Like, and we talked about it before. The Griffin disc is great if you have replacements and backups ready to go. Like, why I am even more confident in my precious child now than I've ever been is because I have another one waiting right behind it, like that I've thrown side by side, and like, awesome. Okay, cool. And you have the same thing, like with your 2020. So like, my question then would be, Brad, what 3 discs did you try?
All right. So I threw 3 discs today. They're all similar, but different. So I threw a Champion Beast today. I threw Champion Turn today, and then I also threw a G-Star Charger today. So 3 different molds. 2 are kind of, I would call them in the classic vein, Robbie, like the Turn and the I almost said Boss Beast, but Charger's new, right? So I had to try it. I've been wanting to try the Charger as well, just kind of for myself. What I did do, since the Charger is a 13-speed, I did grab a 168-gram Charger because I wanted to try to compensate a little bit. I also have a shoulder injury I'm like nursing, so I was trying to make it like a little easier to see what these discs fly like. So yeah, I threw these, and hearing about your destroyer, I'm confident one of these are definitely a solution for you. But Robbie, let's walk through some questions to try to really narrow it down. I have a feeling on which one I would recommend, but I want to make sure we're on the same page.
I do as well, and I'm going to be honest. I bet that it's actually a different one because knowing what plastic, I didn't know what plastics you threw the other 2 in. I knew what plastic you threw the Charger in, but that is influencing my thought once again from the end of the pains and struggles. So, how does hand feel compare amongst them? Because one's a 13 speed, another's a 12.
We've got 13, 12, and 10 speed. I think like just from hand feel, like I love my Vulture, so obviously the Beast feels pretty good just because it's a 10 speed as well. And here's the thing, I have bigger hands, so like a 13 speed has always felt good in my hand. I just can't throw them. Like I started out throwing a Nuke SS just because I loved how it felt in my hand. But none of them feel bad in the hand. There's no like weird flashing. I would say maybe the turn, if I had to give one that was like the least comfortable, maybe the turn was, but it's not uncomfortable by any means. Hand feel winner though is probably the Beast, just because I like a 10 speed. But the Charger's plastic feels very good because it's G Star.
And new G Star is a thing of beauty. I think it's not. It's different than for those of you who love your classic. It's different, but it's still a thing of beauty.
I lied. This is just a Star Charger. This is not a G Star Charger.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Continue.
That also influences the decision. Okay. So looking at those, when you're throwing them, I know Danny said that like his long distance destroyer would have that turn, it would flex, but you were saying, right, Danny, it didn't really necessarily like dump at the end either.
It wasn't like a boom. Yeah.
Yeah. So thinking about like the finish that these had, how are each of those three finishing on their flights?
Okay, so let's start Charger. Charger was interesting because when it came out of my hand, it kind of wanted to flip. Like, you know how it is when you throw, you can tell it like has that little motion like it wants to flip, but I could not get it to flip up the flat for me. It would carry the angle I had it on for a while, but then it would just dump hard for me at the end. So I don't think that's the answer for that particular part of the flight. The turn would kind of flip up and just go straight, but did have a finish for me. It did have some fade at the end, surprisingly. The Beast would turn, would turn, and then come back to straight. It would never like fade out to the left. So like as far as that flight, again, at normal elevation with zero wind, that is probably closer to the flight for me in my arm.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense for a lot of it. Danny, have you thrown any of these three discs before?
I've thought about throwing the Charger, but I never have. The turn, probably not much at all. I don't have any turns. And the Beast is actually a disc I've thought about trying too, so that works out.
Okay. I wanted to make sure also before like diving further in, if you were like, yeah, I threw like Beast for like the first 2 years and I actually just pulled a Beast out of my bag and I hate that disc.
No.
That way we don't walk down. Okay. So that makes a lot of sense. Brad, talking about, did you throw them on any Hyzer?
Yes.
Okay. So how did they hold up on the Annie?
I mean, the Beast was beautiful. Like if I threw on Annie, it would just turn. And then like at the very end of the flight, it would flex back a little bit for me. Again, not a ton, but it would come back to more like the neutral position. I don't know. Turn, if I'm being 100% honest, I didn't like feel like I got a good feel for the flight of the turn. I just don't feel like it came out of my hand well a lot. It was the one out of the three, even the Charger, that I just did not feel like I could get it to come out well. So for whatever it's worth, I could get it on Hyzer, but I feel like if I got on an Hyzer, I was getting a lot of early releases with only the turn. So for whatever that's worth. From the little bit that I did see, if I did get it on Hyzer, it still had fade. Like it still came back at the end of the flight. And I don't think it's from like the turns disc. I think it's from me not getting it up to like rotation, to be honest with you. Charger was, I mean, what you'd expect out of an overstable disc probably versus like a -1.2. I could get it on Hyzer and get a nice, like pretty quick, like flex line out of it. And I still got just as much on the flex line. I did push more distance out of it, obviously, than I did on any other line. And it was like matching like the Beast distance, which was typically the Beast I was throwing farther than any of them.
Awesome. Okay.
But on that flex line though, the Charger it felt comfortable and it was like pushing distance on a flex line for me.
Okay. And then I guess sort of my final question for like curiosity was, you did throw them on some forehands as well. And I know shoulder hurting, so forehand, no bueno. But how did they, because I'm guessing, Danny, you probably also forehand your destroyers.
Yep, I do.
Honestly, the turn, I don't know. The turn was just maybe I didn't like the turn very much. That's just what I'm coming to. But no, it was fine. It felt fine on forehand. If I threw it straight, it would hold straight for a while and then just dump out the end. Again, I think just coming from I didn't get it up to speed. The Charger, though, with a bigger rim, it fit really well in my hand. I do a power grip on my forehand. So it felt really good in my hand. And I have a little like baby Hyzer on my forehand. And I actually got to flip up multiple times like on forehand. So it would flip up flat and ride and then Hyzer out at the end. It would fade at the end. Beast kind of flipped up and turned a little bit, but had a little bit of fade at the end for me. Believe it or not, I did get the Charger farther than the Beast on forehand consistently.
Okay. So as you kind of talk through it, what are your thoughts on what could be a good fit for Danny?
Okay, so the Beast, I think, could be a very good fit. Just because, A, it's a 10 speed, and I think that just based on what you're throwing and like the distance you're throwing, I think that you could just bomb a Beast like no other. I think you could just get incredible distance out of it consistently. The thing that worries me about the Beast is, A, this isn't Champ. I don't know how it flies in Star. I know that's definitely going to make a difference. And we also have Halo. So maybe the Halo Beast is maybe an answer to you, just considering wind, right? And maybe some more overstability. But as far as like the flight, having a little bit of turn, but it comes back, like that seems like where your Destroyer lived, I guess, as far as flight path. So that's my thought on the Beast. The turn, I don't know, man. I don't think the turn's the right disc. I initially thought that, but I don't know. I don't. It doesn't help that I didn't love it, I guess. So it's hard to recommend something I didn't love. The Charger's an interesting one. I know you like Star. I know you can throw a Destroyer. So that's a 12 speed. We're only going up to 13 speed here. If you're going 12, why not 13, right? But I'm also thinking like, hey, wind issue, maybe that's not a bad thing. You're going to get maybe a little bit more overstable flight, but you have it sounds like you have a little bit more angle control and form control than me. So maybe the Charger wouldn't be such a bad thing for you. And this one is lighter weight. So I think you might be able to get this up to speed, and it might mimic the flight of your beat-in Destroyer a little bit more. And I think I heard it from Hunter. Maybe I'm making that up, but he said he liked the Charger because it did fly like a beat-in Destroyer already off the shelf. So, and Robbie, I don't know I know you're a Charger thrower as well, or was.
Yeah. So I think the Charger makes the most sense for sure in my head. Also already like new mold, and they have it in a variety of plastics already. You got it in Star. You got, I don't know if they make Champion Chargers yet. Like that may be the one plastic they're missing it in. But they have it in Star, G-Star, and Halo. I know those three exist. The Halo ones, Beefcakes, certified from Greg Barsby's mouth himself. Loves how it feels. Love the stiffness of it. Gonna have to beat it in to get it to fly like he wants it to fly. So I think that is definitely a solid option to continue or to think about. I'm bummed that Brad did not like the turn, but I can get it because I will say the turn to me, if the Comet is the people's Buzz, the turn is the people's Destroyer to me. Because I think the Wraith is an easier to throw disc, but the Wraith still has some overstability to it. The thing about a turn in Champion plastic, it is one of the few molds that Innova has that it actually changes the flight numbers between plastics. So like a Champion turn is a -2/2, a Star turn, a Halo turn, G-Star turn, all of those -3/2. So
Okay.
The Champion turns are more overstable. When I played my Pro Tour event, I was relying on the Champion turn consistently for my biggest distance driver because I knew I could flip it up. I knew it had some easy turn to it, but I also knew like it wasn't going to necessarily burn all the way over, but it wasn't going to fade out into OB that I was trying to avoid. So from that experience, I think the Champion turn could be a good alternative. But my warning that I give everyone who throws a turn, I have never felt a honeymoon phase with a disc more than the turn, which is it comes out of your hand, flies amazing for like 2 or 3 rounds. And then you got to figure out, as a married guy, you'll get this. Honeymoon phase is amazing. Then you get home and you realize that she does the dishes wrong. And you're like, oh man, how am I going to get over this? And then finally you realize, you know what? There's 2 ways to do dishes. So then you're back in joy again. And then suddenly you realize, oh man, she folds towels wrong. Oh man. And we're back to this. Like, it is an ebb and flow disc for sure. And its sweet spots are great. Its low spots are super frustrating. I have not found that to be the case with the Charger. I have found that it just does what it's supposed to. So that's where I'm between the two. I love the turn. I always keep turns in stock in my basement. And whenever I'm super frustrated for distance, I always go back to the turn. But I have to avoid it after like a little bit. So I know that doesn't help the judgment. I would ask Danny, what sounds interesting to you amongst our blurred feedback?
Well, hey, let me add this really quick before you answer. My gut said turn, Robbie, before I started talking about that. So,
yeah, and that's, I get it, because it's when you, like you said, if he doesn't throw well, it's really hard for me to like, I really want to like love the Nuke SS, but I cannot throw that disc well for some reason.
Okay, now,
So it's
to even
kind
make
of,
it more complicated, go ahead.
it's kind of funny because Brad, you said you felt like you would early release the turn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think a few years back when I did throw the turn like a few times, I don't think it was my disc, I had the same problem. Like it was an early release, but it was a halo turn and it was super flat.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what the profile of a champion turn is like. If it's a little domier
It's got like a tiny dome.
Oh,
like
see now that's a lot. Like this sucker I threw was flat, like, and it's just every time early.
The thing that is messing with me, and I think it's a grip thing. It's like it situates okay, but like I don't. If you think about like a lid going on, like getting a difference between the lid being on and the lid being sealed. Like I don't feel like my grip is sealed off with this turn. And I don't know if you can see it on camera. There's like a very interesting, like it's going to be hard to, okay, maybe you can see it there. There's a very interesting ridge here that is unlike any disc I threw today. And really kind of like any disc I think the Vulture has like a smaller version of that maybe, but I don't know. It just has like a very interesting ridge on the very bottom. I don't know. Is this the would you just consider this still the rim, Robbie? Like this part right here? Like this part? The lip, if you will.
Yeah.
Before you go to the bottom of the disc. So yeah, that's I think that's what's messing with my grip on it, to be honest with you. So for what it's worth. So
well,
Danny, this is in the bag where we recommend discs. What do you want to recommend for yourself?
Yeah, what are you leaning towards?
I mean, heck, I want to try all three, but honestly, I'd give the Charger a try first and see how that goes.
Yeah.
Just because I'm worried about, the start of the year being so windy.
Totally.
Yeah, that's where I'm leaning to, just because of the wind. If wind was not a factor we were talking about, the Beast is the answer. In my mind.
I still want to try the Beast though, because it's obviously not a fairway, but it's not like a crazy fast distance driver, and I feel like that would be like kind of like a good in between disc.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe that the Charger's the heal for your heartache for that beautiful beat-in destroyer, and maybe the Beast is the answer for, because I mean where the Beast lives, really you have a hole there too, if I'm being honest. So that might solve some other pain for you too.
Yeah, because I will always go back to the Macbeth quote of the farthest flying disc in his bag is his Onyx, and like that's a 10-speed. It very much, I agree. It could be two different, like when you got an open shot and you really need to crush one. okay, I'm going to the Charger, or when I don't need as much distance, I need a little more control, I can go to the Beast, kind of a deal. So definitely some alternatives.
And just another last minute thought here too. I think maybe the Beast is what you want your TL3 to be. Is that a fair statement, Robbie?
Yeah.
Do you think in that like middle
Yeah.
has a little stability to it, but
Yeah.
you can get some distance and trust it to get a full flight?
Yeah, it's been a minute since I've personally thrown a Beast, so I know like my recommendation to a Beast is kind of clouded from my early days of throwing a Beast. So, but watching what Hunter was doing with the Beast, which Hunter, Danny, like similar flights they're going to be getting out of a disc. I think that it's definitely doable. So, Danny, would you be willing to come back on in a future episode and let us know how these fly for you?
Heck yeah.
Good. That's awesome, man.
I'd love
Well,
to.
we appreciate you coming on. It's always fun to talk through different situations. We haven't talked through an all Innova bag, I don't think yet, Robbie. We have people that were Innova heavy, but not a full Innova bag, I believe. And
I'm
also,
glad I could be the first.
and even the wind. That's always a good conversation because again, a lot of people from a lot of different places listen. So I'm sure a lot of you relate. If y'all can relate to wind, give Danny some love in the comments. Just let him know, hey, we get we're here for the wind gang. So Danny, we appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for coming on, and look forward to speaking to you in a future episode, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, take care.
Man, I'm telling you, I hope that was interesting for the audience. I very much enjoyed it, and it's once again, it's something of like a passion of I can get it's just I spent so much time studying the all Innova bag.
Yeah. And from the same respect, I mean, the all Discraft bag, it definitely had its challenges, and I think sometimes you get locked into, well, this is what everybody else says to throw, or this is what it looks like I should throw, and you forget about other molds as well, and like that other things exist. And as new molds come out, you're kind of locked in where you are, so it's hard to really be like, hey, maybe I don't love the TL3 anymore. Maybe I need to switch to something else. So definitely get that.
The challenge also opens up if he's like, hey, it's not just Innova disc, it's Innova mate, because then we can talk Infinite, then we can talk Millennium, Hyzer bomb, like the new Vela, which is a disc that I'm super curious to try, is the Vela, which is a Millennium disc dropping for Calvin. That's supposed to be, I'm guessing, like he's tired of sharing the Eagle with other people in the Innova lineup. So they were like, hey, we'll get him a Millennium disc that is his. And it's supposed to fly like I'm guessing his good Eagles do.
Oh, nice.
So I'm going to be very curious about that guy.
That'll be interesting for sure.
But there are other amazing discs out there. And before we dive into what's new in the warehouse, obviously, if you have all these amazing discs, you got to have a place to store them. And today's What's New in the Warehouse is sponsored by a company that I have gotten to work with before. Great company and a great storage solution, Discbox.
Yeah, Discbox. So shout out to Discbox and Connor. Thanks for sponsoring this part of the episode. Really, if you haven't heard of Discbox, let's be honest. There are a ton of us disc golfers now. We have a ton of extra discs. That's what we love to do. They're in our closet. They're in our car. They're in the bathroom. They're in the kitchen. My wife always gets on to me. I'll get some new used discs or something, and I'll walk in and show everybody. We all talk about them, and I always leave them on like the entertainment center. And she's like, why are these discs always here? So that's on me. We all do it, okay? And here's a problem. There's a very few storage solutions out there that are specifically for disc golf discs, but also if we've seen like the big racks or your make your own that takes up a lot of space, or they can be very expensive. So those are all very unfortunate things about like the storage solutions we have right now. Thankfully, Discbox is low cost. It doesn't take up a ton of space, and it's really the only thing like it on the market right now, for sure. So Discbox is a very low cost disc golf solution. And if you go to discboxdg.com, you'll find quantity discounts, which is awesome because they're very stackable and take up very little space. There's some wholesale options. You can get different colors. And most importantly, there are no order minimums, which is awesome. So you can order a single box if you want. You can order 300 if you want. Because, I mean, I'll be honest, I need like 10 or 12 of those boys right now. So make sure you go over to Discbox. or at dg.com. Get your collection organized today. Use code FOUNDATION for 15% off. These things are already cheap, guys, and he's given us 15% off just for you being an In the Bag listener. So we definitely appreciate that. I know that, Robbie, you've had some experience with this box. Are you still using yours?
Absolutely. Because I don't have the fancy Hyzer disc racks or anything like that. I was trying to do the whole Walmart solution. And so I have, I think I have like 8 disc boxes stacked up outside of like my normal area. Makes it all very concise. And it also makes it really easy to get through as well, which is fantastic because like I keep a disc box full of discs that are all of my backups to my tournament bag. So when I'm going on a road trip, I take that and I just throw it in the bag. And it's different than a practice bag where they're going to roll around in your car. Disc box is fantastic because it can just sit there. You can take a disc box and put it in your trunk. Never have to worry about it. Always have discs ready to go without them rolling around in the back of your car. I've got a disc box that's full of pigs. I've got a disc box that's full of promo discs that people send. Like it is such a fantastic storage solution. And also they ship really easily, like in terms of them getting them to you. And they are so easy to assemble. That is one of the most underrated parts, like really durable construction on how they're going to set up. But it, like they have a video that is 30 seconds or something.
Yeah.
And you just go, whoop, 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 fold it all together. No extra supplies needed. Builds itself. I cannot preach the wonders of Discbox enough.
Yeah. So make sure you check them out. I mean, again, Connor's great dude, like local, like that's him. That Discbox is Connor. He runs the thing. He's a great guy and worked with him with Atlas a ton. Now happy that he's working with Foundation. And so use code Foundation, 15% off your disc box. Pick up a 3-pack. You will be very glad you did. So
absolutely.
Hey, and if you pick up a 3-pack, you're going to need discs to put in that 3-pack if you don't have them already. Transition, unlock.
What's new in the warehouse?
What's new in the warehouse? All right. This week we have, I wish I had him. I should have brought him in here. That was poor planning. But we have Bogey Bro Tour, West Coast Tour, stamped Halo Thunderbirds and Halo Bosses that dropped on Wednesday, which was awesome. We bought plenty, so there's still some in stock. So make sure you check those out. Those of you know, I am a fan of the Halo Thunderbird. It always fights my Vulture a little bit. I have one in there. Again, thanks Wes for that. But great discs, so make sure you check those out. As we speak, we just got our Clash restock. It'll be up. We got all the classic Clash goodness. We have all the new Clash goodness. So the new, what is it, Dayglow? I'm sorry, Sunny. No, Sunny is the plastic. Yeah. So we have that. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what I can say that we got and what I can't, because some of it's not even released yet. It may not release till July. So we got a bunch. Make sure you check it out. That is going to be up and ready to go. We have finally got all of the MVP up that we got in. So we put up a ton of MVs, a ton of photons, a ton of waves. So a lot of goodness that went up this week as well. So make sure you check that out. Our Bogey Bro hats in both colors are in full stock. We've got Bogey Bro patches, all the Bogey Bro goodness. Support those guys out there running around the West Coast being crazy kids. So make sure you check all that stuff out. So a lot of stuff going on in the warehouse. Make sure you're just recently restocked section's your best friend. You know, absolutely. The top 20 to 50 discs in that section are going to tell you what we've recently uploaded. All the new plastic, all the new stamps, everything.
Yeah. There is so much good stuff. I mean, I'm telling you guys, getting to be up there just a couple weeks ago, walk around. There are so many moments of like, what? I can't, I mean, Brad mentioned it. Halo Beasts. They still have Halo Beasts. Like that is a Halo plastic disc that you cannot find in a lot of places. And they're just chilling on foundationdisc.com.
And Halo Mysteers, we still have those. Halo Savants. Like that Halo Savant is like screaming my name every time I look at it. I'm trying to resist.
Yeah. So you're going to find these, and maybe you don't have that self-control, and that's okay, because you're going to find it and you're going to be like, you know what? I need to try this. Throw some foundation care on there in case it doesn't work out for you. That makes it super easy. But most often you're going to find that disc and you're going to be like, wow, this is amazing. In fact, I would say it's good. And what do you do if it's good?
Yeah. If it's good,
I think you keep it in the bag.
You keep it in the bag. We'll see you next week.